Welcome to the first edition of the Cheat Meal presented for DeepFriedDraft.com. My name is Brian Bosarge, founder of DeepFriedDraft.com. Deep Fried Draft is a website dedicated to the NFL Draft, college football, the NFL. Pretty much anything that concerns the NFL Draft, we're going to talk about it. You can find us, like I said, at DeepFriedDraft.com. I'm also on Twitter at DeepFriedDraft, Facebook.com/DeepFriedDraft. Tell you a little bit about what we're going to do each and every week. We're going to talk about what we're going to watch, or should I say what's on tap for the weekend. Every weekend during the college football season, I'm going to watch at least 10 to 12 college football games every week. Try to focus on a game or games that have a good chunk of prospects in them, so I can go back and watch them, study the prospects. Currently, I have a list of a little less than 660 prospects, seniors, juniors, some redshirt sophomores for the upcoming 2017 NFL Draft, or draft eligible for that draft. I'm going to try to at least watch one game for every one of those guys that I have on that list. Some I'll watch multiple games. Some of the guys I may not even be able to watch during the season at all. I'll depend on, YouTube videos. Maybe draftbreakdown.com will have some videos of the guys. Some of them will just participate in an all-star game that I'll be able to watch. Senior Bowl this week released its annual watch list. They had 400 senior prospects on their watch list. Each year the Senior Bowl has 110 senior prospects. The occasional junior who's graduated early and is eligible for the Senior Bowl. On their watch list there was 197 players that I did not have on my watch list, so I've added those, and some of the guys, I'm like, maybe I should have had those. Some, we'll see. Like I said, not all of them are going to, be invited to the Senior Bowl. That's why it's called a watch list. 2 games on tap this weekend in college football for the opening weekend. The last few years they've had the FCS kickoff game. It's been a week before everybody else gets started. This year, no exception. 6:30 on Saturday, ESPN showing Charleston Southern at the 5-time defending FCS national champion North Dakota State Bison. Last year, of course, NDSU had what would turn out to be the number 2 overall pick, quarterback Carson Wentz. This year, slim pickings as far as early prospects from their team. As a matter of fact, the only guy that I will probably heavily focus on is senior linebacker Nick DeLuca. But of course, there's always a chance of other guys jumping out, and that's going to be the case with their opponents. Charleston Southern, as of right now, I have 0 players from the Charleston Southern team on my watch list. But you never know. You watch this game, you could have a player come out and dominate. I'll just use this for an example. 2 years ago, I was watching some rando game, Mountain West game involving San Jose State, and a running back, then junior, named Tyler Irvin, just jumped off the screen to me, and I'm like, who is this guy? Let me write his name down. Probably not going to come out early this year, but hey, this guy could emerge next season. And then lo and behold, Tyler Irvin blows up during his senior year, has a great week at the Senior Bowl, ends up being drafted, I believe, in the 4th round by the Texans. Probably going to have a chance to make an impact there this season with them releasing Arian Foster. He'll split time with free agent Lamar Miller. But that's just an example of a guy who can, you've never really heard of and can jump off the tape. And have an impact, or just a guy to just to remember, and that could happen with, anybody from North Dakota State or Charleston Southern. The other game this week actually kicks off tomorrow night at 9 p.m., also on ESPN, being played in Australia, game between Cal and Hawaii. Cal had 6 or 7 guys on their offense last year, including number 1 overall pick Jared Goff, who were in NFL camps. A lot of them probably going to make NFL opening day rosters this year. Not so much. Main guy to focus on for Cal is going to be graduate transfer quarterback Davis Webb, transfer from Texas Tech. Big kid, 6'3", 225, big arm. Goes from the same offensive system he played in Texas Tech, this similar air raid offense at Cal under Sonny Dykes. Hawaii, new coach Nick Rolovich, former quarterback of Hawaii under June Jones. He takes over as the head coach at Hawaii after being offensive coordinator in Nevada a year ago. He's got his hands full. Norm Chow, cupboard pretty much left bare. That team probably going to be one of the worst teams in the FBS this year. Definitely going to be one of the worst teams in the Mountain West Conference. They only had one prospect who I would consider draftable, and that was defensive lineman Kennedy Tulimaseli, but he was kicked off the team about a month ago. Had some, we'll call them domestic violence issues. Not sure if he's going to be reinstated to the school. Probably shouldn't be. I don't know. This is not his first run-in with the law. He was a late round draftable prospect. Probably not now. Probably a free agent type. I haven't seen where if he's landed at another school. He probably won't. But he's a guy who could find his way into a camp next year. But like I said, I don't think he's going to be draftable. That being said, it's probably not going to be a close game. But Davis Webb is he's the attraction there. Other things we do on the website each week, every week during the preseason and NFL regular season, we're going to name the Deep Fried Draft Rookie of the Week. And the first 2 weeks of the preseason this year, Dallas Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott, who's just been phenomenal these first 2 games. He's won that award for us this week. Couple NFL trades gone down in the last day or so. New England traded center Brian Stork, drafted a couple years ago out of Florida State, was a starting center as a rookie for New England. Reports out of Foxborough, he's got some attitude issues, gotten a couple of scuffles at a joint practice last week. He's been traded to Washington for a conditional 7th round pick. I don't know what the conditions are. I'm just going to assume if he's on the 53-man roster, that a 7th round pick is going back to New England. That's generally when it's a conditional 7th. That's pretty much always the condition. New England also acquired 2013 6th overall pick Barkevious Mingo from Cleveland. Mingo's had 7 sacks in 3 years in Cleveland. His 5th-year option was not picked up. So he may or may not even have made the team in Cleveland, but they're going to pick up a 5th-round pick from New England in this year's draft. Mingo, 3 different coaches in 4 years in Cleveland. Maybe that stunted his growth. Maybe he just was never going to make it. I really don't know. Curious to see how his production ends up with the Patriots. A couple of big days coming up in the NFL. On the 29th, I believe. I may have to double check that, but on the 29th, rosters have to cut from 90 to 75. Typically, this first round of cuts, you see guys probably not even going to be on teams' practice squads. These are your camp bodies, if you will. You may see some injured guys You also see a lot of maybe veterans who teams are just giving them they're not going to make Team A's roster, so they're giving them an extra week to catch on with another team, in hopes that maybe they'll give them a chance. Just doing them good service by just go ahead and letting them go. The big cuts will be September the 3rd. Teams have to go from 75 to 53, and this is where you just see us bloodletting every year of teams just cutting guys. I mean, these are your guys, 10 of those guys generally end up on teams' practice squads. But yeah, I mean, that's always a very busy day for me with the website because it's always the opening day of college football. So I've got probably 8 or 9 games I'm watching that day, maybe more. And then you're seeing just constantly just the news come in of all the players that are being released, and it's just a wild day for me personally, and I can't imagine what it's like to be a player on those days. Another thing we like to do at the website was started this year. The scouting reports aren't uncommon for an NFL draft based website. I've never really attempted doing them before. It's not that I didn't have the know-how. It's hard fitting time to do it. But this year I gave it a shot, and we're calling it the Deep Fried Draft Cookbook. It's because we like to tie, all of our names in food related, hence the name of this called the Cheap Meal. Cheap Meal because it's a food related name, and cheap because it's a cheaply produced product, as you can see if you're watching this. But with the cookbook recipes is basically, it's just my take on a scouting report. I'll tell you the good ingredients of the players, the bad ingredients of the player, what kind of a meal I think they're going to be when they get to the next level. So far we've done 9 for the upcoming draft. I've only focused on players who were seniors because, those are the guys I know they're going to be in the next year's draft. We've looked at 3 quarterbacks so far. Southern Miss quarterback Nick Mullins, Minnesota quarterback Mitch Leidner, who's getting a lot of run as a potential first-round pick at quarterback. I don't really see that. He's has tools, but he's very, very raw. And Cincinnati quarterback Gunnar Kiel, who's a just 5-star recruit out of high school, but he's 24. He's got some injury histories, and it was just announced yesterday that Hayden Moore is actually going to be the starting quarterback for the Bearcats this year. So Gunnar Kiel is now the backup quarterback going into his senior year. So that doesn't, to me, lend itself to a guy who's going to be a top NFL prospect at the next level if he can't even start on his own team. We've looked at one running back, San Diego State running back Donnell Pumphrey, and this is a guy I really like, similar to the vein of how I liked Tyler Irvin, who I spoke about earlier. Pumphrey he's on the small end like Irvin. He's very shifty, very fast. But he doesn't run with the power like Irvin did. But man, he can catch. And I will put extra points on a running back if you catch the ball out of the backfield, because I just think that's such a big part of a running back transition to the NFL level. Is can you catch? If you can't, you're not really that much of a use to me as an NFL prospect. I've looked at LSU receiver Traven Durrell, guy I really like in a late first round area. Tight end O.J. Howard from Alabama. He's not 100% polished. I think he could do better as a as a run blocker. But man, he's so dynamic with the ball in his hands. Looked at offensive tackle John Heck from North Carolina, another second round, guy, perhaps. Jared Davis, linebacker from Florida. And we've also looked at Tre'Davious White, corner from LSU, as a guy who I liked a lot more just in passing than after I did more intense viewing of him, where I liked him a little bit less. I still think he's a late first round prospect, but he's not a top 10 to 15 prospect like I thought he was going into the season. I'm going to try to get at least one more recipe up before the season starts, because once the season starts, it's going to be hectic, to say the least, for me to try to get a new one. I'll try to get one or two up during the season, maybe three, but it's not going to be as easy to do for those. Let's see, we had some other news involving prospects. Notre Dame kicked out safety Max Redfield, just kicked him out of school after an arrest this past weekend. He was charged with numerous offenses along with a few other Notre Dame players, but Redfield was a mid to late round safety prospect. So now he's got a lot of questions to answer to NFL brass before next season. Good news for Georgia. Looks like running back Nick Chubb. Coach Kirby Smart said that Chubb is going to play. He didn't say how much, but said Chubb would play in the team's opener against North Carolina in Atlanta next Saturday. Chubb tore his knee up pretty bad last season, so that's good news for him, and he really needs to he was a late first, early second round prospect before the knee injury, so he really needs to show that he's bounced back from that, to kind of retain that draft status. He's only a junior, so I mean, it's a possibility he could go back to school, but we'll see. Washington State safety Shalom Luani was arrested for assault after he allegedly punched somebody at a Domino's. I'm not sure what that's about. His Facebook or Twitter status today, he said that there's two sides to every story. We'll see. This may be something where the charges are going to end up getting dropped or something. But Luani's not a guy I've really studied up to this point. He was, matter of fact, I just added him to my list as one of the Senior Bowl watch list guys, so I didn't even have him as a prospect to keep an eye on, but I will now. But so that's it for him. Auburn's named quarterback Sean White as their starting quarterback against Clemson next Saturday. Not really sure what this does for Auburn. I mean, they probably weren't going to win anyway. He's probably the safer choice, I guess, of the two that I think were in consideration. Him and JUCO transfer John Franklin III. Jeremy Johnson came in the last season with so much hype and just completely fell to pieces in the Louisville game, and then just never recovered after that. He's a guy. He stayed at Auburn. I really thought he should have transferred down to FCS, maybe Alabama State, Alabama A&M, somewhere around there, and try to rebuild his image, maybe have a good season at the FCS level, maybe get himself back on the NFL radar. But he's not going to get back on the NFL radar as the third string quarterback at Auburn, so his draft status is probably done, I would say. So yeah, I mean, that's what you can expect week in, week out. We're going to talk football. We're going to talk about, well, like I said, the games that we're going to watch coming up next weekend. That's part of the video is going to be long, because right now I've got 18 games set up to watch over the entirety of Labor Day weekend. Like I said, I'll talk about each game. I'll try to hit on one or two guys that I'm really going to focus on in those games. But yeah, so next weekend, huge weekend of college football, great matchups, and we'll get into those next week. But thank you for watching the first inaugural edition of the cheap meal presented by deepfrieddraft.com. So check us out week in, week out. We'll try to get this video up on Wednesdays, maybe Thursday mornings of every week to get you set up for the weekend. But thanks for joining us, and good night.